Hello and welcome back to the NOTCAST and welcome to 2023. It's 1st of January 2023, a new year, a new start. The year of Avengers Endgame, X-Men, Days of Future Past, and despite what the memes tell you, it's not the year of Zardoz. Zardoz is set in 2293, so don't get your hopes up that you can walk around wearing a huge red leather thong being Sean Connery, okay? You've still got to wait another 270 years before we get to that point. As it is 1st of January 2023, no New Year's resolutions for me. I don't make New Year's resolutions anymore. I don't necessarily feel they don't work for me. The only resolution I make, which is the decision I make on a daily basis, is to try not being... Don't go being a twat now, as they said in Hot Fuzz. Generally, I succeed in that. Obviously, there's going to be some people that think that I am. I can't be responsible for what other people think about me. I can only be responsible for what I do and who I am. And I'm okay about that. So this episode is going to be talking about the best and worst films of 2022, by the way. And rather than last episode, which I did a kind of wrap-up of 2022, but I didn't do an actual rap because I'm terrible at rapping. I'm even worse than Bernard Sumner's rapping on the first electronic album, or Vanilla Ice, which, by the way, I didn't put that on my socials. I didn't put it on Twitter, I didn't put it on Instagram, I didn't put it on Facebook. I got the same amount of views as I always did, which makes me think that when I stick them up on those, people don't read them or watch them, and that's well, that's interesting, isn't it? But then it's only been a day, and if you were watching it last night on New Year's Eve instead of being out and enjoying New Year's Eve, there were probably better things to do than to watch me talk about 2022 last night. So that's the way I'm going to interpret this. Today I'm going to be talking about the best and worst films of 2022. I watch a lot of movies. I am lucky in that we are a very visual household. I probably watch about 60 hours-ish of visual stuff a week. I write down everything I watch in a book, create a list. Often it's things I've already seen that I'm revisiting or re-experiencing, or it's DVD extras. In the days when they used to do DVD extras, watch a fair chunk of YouTube stuff, live music, all that type of thing. Awful lot of television. Felt like I almost completed Netflix during lockdown, actually, although I know I didn't. It just felt like I did because I spent an awful lot of time watching it. And so I've probably seen, I would have thought this year, 300-400 films at least. I would have thought probably a heck of a lot more than that, actually. Maybe 600 or so, probably at least 10 a week. And I've done pretty well out of it. But this year, and that includes going back and watching films that I've never seen before. So, for example, I watched Sharky's Machine, which finally turned up on Archive. And I watched, what was it, Ghostbusters, the preview cut of that. Nothing Lasts Forever, the 1984 movie that's only been shown on television. I really like watching old and obscure stuff, which I vaguely half remember from when I was a kid, and have no recollection of, or some dim recollection of, and watching it through the prism of being an adult. It's quite interesting. So I watched all of Blake 7, for example, which is not great. I'll put it that way, not great at all. I'm currently watching Space 1999, from the mid-70s. I'm currently rewatching the original series of Star Trek, but also go to the cinema a fair chunk. And so the worst film I saw this year is, I can't muck about, since it hasn't been released on DVD or Blu-ray. In fact, it's only been in the cinemas for 16 days. You'll just have to pretend that this is Avatar 2, The Way of Water, which is basically Doug Avatar doing more avataring. It is, as a sequel, it's enormously unsatisfying. And it's not like, Matrix 2 or Matrix Revolutions and Resurrection, where you knew that you were going to get a resolution in about 6 months. It just feels like it's an extra part of the story that's bolted on without a reason to exist. The first film, this obviously being the Blu-ray release from about 2010. Hi, I'm Doug Avatar. Here I am doing some avataring. just felt like I was watching a really long extended episode of Blue Planet with Richard Attenborough or David Attenborough. I forget which one there. Probably both. Talking about movies and things, and being human consciousnesses and sky people put into great big blue bodies and just waffling about doing things like that. Apparently some people have a sense of grief when they come out of the movie and they're not experiencing Avatar, they're experiencing the frankly pretty grey, brutalist and realistic world that we actually bloody live in. And I'm just kind of thinking that Avatar as a film, Avatar 2 The Way of Water, is an enormous waste of time, money and effort. And it makes me sad that James Cameron, who is, by the way, a fantastic filmmaker when he has some limitations to his budget and his vision, has gone down the route of doing this completely self-contained, self-referential universe that is frankly pretty boring. With Avatar, I think he's trying to create his own Star Wars, and he isn't succeeding because the world of Avatar is not compelling enough. There's not enough inherent drama in that at all. You can be flippant and you can say, yes, it is dances with wolves in space and all that type of stuff. But Avatar 1 is not amazing. It's a bloated movie, and CGI looks, to put technically, pretty shonky. And then Avatar 2 is more of the same but worse. And Avatar 2 is 192 minutes long. That's 3 hours 12 minutes. That is shorter than any that's longer than any show The Cure played in 2022. And The Cure are notorious and legendary for playing long shows. It's 20 minutes longer than the longest show The Cure played this year, and it's certainly 20 minutes worse. Avatar is dull. When George Lucas was starting off writing The Phantom Menace, and you can see the first day of writing for The Phantom Menace on the DVD extras for this, which is called The Beginning. And The Beginning is a new hour-long documentary, although obviously it's not new now because it's 23 years old. But he starts off and he says, all I need is a good idea. And with Avatar, you don't have a good idea. What you have is a very standard, traditional, tropey story of human invaders coming to overturn the natives, who are imaginatively called the Na'vi, which every single letter of Na'vi is in the word native, by the way, and the human turning against his own masters and going rogue. It's a trope. It's been done lots of times in movies, and the message, the underlying core message of it, capitalism is bad, technology is awful. You've got to get in touch with nature. The world is not yours. You can't do what you want with it. Yada yada yada. It's been done many times before, and every time it's been done better than it was in Avatar, and every time it's been done, and Avatar is much better than Avatar 2. Let's go some Avataring. The problem with Avatar 2 is that it is too long. There is too much of it. There is not enough story to carry the length of it. In fact, if there's a film that Avatar reminded me of more than any other film I've ever seen, it is the director's cut of The Last Emperor, which is, by the way, the director's cut of The Last Emperor. All those extensions, they're just extra shots of him walking for scale through various things and people moving from one part of the room to another. There's very little in terms of actual narrative which is added to it. Avatar is bloated. It's a director's cut, but the problem is it's been slaved over for so long, is that no one's actually sat down and experienced it and went, it's flabby. It's too much. All of the effort that's put into Avatar 2, all of the CGI, all of the world building, all of the acting, doesn't count for shit if you don't have an idea. And the film is an empty cathedral to nothingness. For 37 months of shooting, you ended up with 192 minutes in the film, of which at least 70 minutes could be cut without hurting the narrative at all. There are at least 3 or 4 subplots which don't add anything to the film. There's a subplot about bullying, there's one about guy communicating with animals. There's some sections where there's just basically replaced with CGI and weird looking fish to make it look exciting. And in it, the main protagonist that we have is a being that is obsessed with revenge and yet disappears for 25 minutes at a time. Trust me, that guy is not doing nothing for 25 minutes. That 25 minutes he is obsessed with conquering and gaining revenge, tracking down the person what did him a baddy, and then making sure that there was retribution that was handed out with extreme prejudice. And yet this film just kind of just drops him for 40 minutes at a time, and you're kind of watching it and going, look, I know that there's a threat. There's a guy out there that wants to hunt down, kill, and destroy this character, Sam Worthington's character, the name of whom I've forgotten, and who wants to wear his eyes as earrings, that type of thing. And yet you end up going, I've forgotten completely that we're actually watching a film. We're just watching a kid fish. We're just watching someone swim. We're watching a guy walk down a very pretty bit of foliage. It's sloppy and flabby in terms of its presentation. The film could be judiciously edited so that it isn't so fucking boring, to be honest. It's bloated, it's unnecessary, it's improbable. The narrative is dropped for 20 or 30 minutes. All the time is spent world building, but if you're not in love with the world, it's just time wasting. There's, the central protagonist disappears for huge chunks of it. It rips off World War II movies, Vietnam War movies, Apocalypse Now, The Poseidon Adventure, Aliens, Dances with Wolves, Jurassic Park, Finding Nemo, and Tomorrow Never Dies. At least I think it's Tomorrow Never Dies. It's the James Bond film with the submarine that's not The Spy Who Loved Me, the Pierce Brosnan one. That's Tomorrow Never Dies, isn't it? It rips that off, definitely. And the characters are idiot protagonists as well. So one of the things that I really, really hate in screenwriting is where the main characters have to behave in an illogical, inexplicable way in order for the plot to move through the steps that it beats that it needs to reach. Because if the characters were smart, and by the way, Sam Worthington's character is apparently a jughead, but a jughead isn't so goddamn daft as to do some of the things that he does, you'd sit there and go, no sane military trained character would ever do the stupid stuff that this character does. Now, if the film is called Mr. Stupid Goes to Idiot Town, for example, I wouldn't mind if the characters did idiot things and did stupid things, but having idiot protagonists that do things that defy logic, reason, common sense, and any degree of rational thought means that you end up just going, no, you fucking idiot, don't do that. And so you end up going, I'm smarter than this film, There's like a scene where there's actions that are necessary to drive the plot along, because otherwise the film would grind to a halt and unravel. As you'd sit there and go, that doesn't make sense. Nobody would do that. And of course, somebody has to do that in order for the film to exist. But most people will be going, nope, not doing that. That's, life-threatening. That is highly dangerous. That is improbable, illogical, and ridiculous. There's a chance where you've got an opportunity to shoot the bad guy from a great distance and to rid yourself of, effectively the thorn in your side, and basically just to shoot him and cut out, 20 minutes of pointless punching. And he doesn't do it. Like that scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark where Indiana Jones pulls out the gun and shoots the swordsman. And it's brilliant because it subverts all your expectations. And that is exactly what somebody in that situation would actually do if they had access to a gun. In Avatar, he's holding the gun. He's pointing it directly down a laser sight at a guy. And he doesn't pull the trigger, even though that would solve all the problems. The film would be 70 minutes long, but that would be okay. Because you end up just going, why? You're a trained killer, a bloody jughead in an alien body on another planet that's been trained to destroy the sky people that are corrupting the world or something, and you have an opportunity to kill the big bad and get away with it, and you don't do it. Hello, is there anybody in there? No. What Stuart Heritage said, not necessarily about this film, he said there isn't a trace of premise here. When he's exactly right. Avatar 2 has no reason to exist. It has no story to tell. It has no logical progression that exists within it. The story that does exist is one that if you had to and were forced at gunpoint to write a sequel to Avatar, is that effectively you'd do Jaws 2 and you'd go back to the well. Another one of them would come back, another one would come back. So you've got the people would go back to the scene of the crime to get a grudge, like a rematch, like Rocky 2. It's basically Rocky 2 and Jaws 2 stuck together in a blue skin with a stupid, ridiculous, impenetrably daft story told by characters that are idiots and assholes. And there's no drama in that. There's no compulsion. There's no compelling reason to pull the plot forwards, apart from one throwaway line, which feels very much like someone said, we really need to get a reason in for all of this shit, so let's think up of a reason. Okay, we'll do that. They do, and you kind of end up going, doesn't quite make sense, but okay. The plot is simplistic to the point of being a nursery rhyme graffitied onto a page, and it's got a very, very simplistic message, which is bang bang, colonialists bad, technology bad, nature good. It's almost like the Napster Bad cartoon with Metallica, but sounds over 3.25 hours. It's an exhausting film to watch. There's too much time spent on it. There's not enough plot. The characters are thick as pig shit, and if the characters had half a brain and were the people that they said they were going to be and were trained in a military fashion to do the things that they were told to do, the film would have been over in 80 minutes and I would have had a much better time at the cinema. The worst thing about the film is that it was made. Ideally, the best thing about it is that it shouldn't have been made at all. It's one of the very worst films I've ever seen. It's got no story to tell. It takes forever to tell it, and it does so in a way that is both wasteful and completely lacking in any internal discipline. I look forward to the days when a fan editor trims it down to about 67 minutes and we still feel that's slightly too long. That's my worst film of the year. In fact, it's one of the worst films I've ever seen, Avatar 2. And I can't pretend that it isn't. That said, the best film I saw all year, the best film was Jordan Peele's Nope. This is a phenomenal movie. It works in every respect. When I was watching it, hang on, there, that's better, it won't slide out of the case. When I was watching Nope, I got this amazing sense every once in a while that you're watching a filmmaker take a step into greatness. You know, that there are very, very few filmmakers that do this. Maybe 3 filmmakers a decade come up and you go, oh my, that guy is incredible at this. And not just, competent like the guys that made some of the Avengers movies, who are, very good at whiz bang crash, or the James Bond movies, which are, very capable ways of telling stories around explosions. And what Kubrick called submersible units. The submersible units are big action set pieces about every 20 or 30 minutes, spread out throughout the movie, moments that you will see on t-shirts and then parodied endlessly by The Simpsons. With Nope, I had this sense when I was watching it that I wasn't watching a great film. I was watching a great filmmaker make a great film. Not a great film by accident, but somebody that had really thought about the ideas, the concepts, and the principles and thoughts that they were going to express, and then found a vehicle that was appropriate for them, that isn't going to feel like author's message. On one hand, it is it's half Jaws, half Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's a fascinating movie about human compulsion to chase the object of desire. The other part of it is that it is around the very nature of society itself. So as far as I'm concerned, Nope, by the way, is a great title. It works on, although it doesn't mean anything, when you watch it, you realise it works on multiple levels. One of the levels is that sense of, in a human being, sometimes if you're at night, you're kind of, you look into the sky and you realise that every single one of those dots that's, maybe about that big in your face, in your eye, that's a whole galaxy. you know, and that's a galaxy that's bigger than we will ever get to experience. You know, you might think it's a long way down to the shops, but that's just peanuts compared to space. Compared to space, you know, it's taken us 20 years or something to get out to the outer rim of our solar system, let alone a galaxy. And every single one of those little dots twinkling in the sky is a galaxy in itself. Nope is a film that the title itself kind of almost is as an acknowledgement of the enormity of everything in the planet. It's a bit of nope, I can't be doing with that. I cannot comprehend that. Because when you get to the total perspective vortex and you see how small you are in relation to absolutely everything else in the universe, you know, unless you say for Beeblebrox, then you'd be looking at it and going, wow, I really am meaningless and insignificant and everything pales into nothing. The other thing about Nope is I think that the title could be conceived to mean not of planet Earth. Now, I'm going to get into spoilers territory, by the way, and say that this film does feature a very unusual form of life that has not previously been identified on this planet. I have to be very careful about how I describe that, because there is an ambiguity about whether it is native to the world or whether it is from another planet. And the short answer to that is I don't know. It looks like it could be a UFO, but it also, as the film progresses and develops, you end up watching it and you're realizing that it could be something very, very different that you're dealing with here. But what we're really dealing with in Nope is about humanity coming into contact with what is effectively a super predator that treats humans as dinner. And there's 3 plot lines in the film that really happen. There's one about a child star who survived a horrific event on the set of a 90s TV sitcom. There is one around a animal, I think it's a chimpanzee, that loses control and goes on a rampage. There's one around grown adults in the year 2022 coming into contact with something that's so far beyond their comprehension, they're just not equipped to understand what they're actually looking at. And the first event, the first plot line around the horrific event has been described as a bad miracle by some of the characters. And by bad miracle, what we mean is it's an event that defines and shapes you, like you're a survivor of a school shooting or a terrorist event or something. That becomes something that's defines you for the rest of your life, but at the same point it's a bad miracle. It's the fact that you survived it might be a miracle, but the fact that it happened is bad and terrifying and awful. And in some respects it's about a metaphor for an obsession that can destroy you, and that obsession could be anything. It could be alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be sex, it could be having a really great record collection, it could be gambling, it could be chasing the elusive perfect shot, and it's about how the entertainment value of that. So what you'll see in Nope is a huge subtext around observation from the first shot of the film right through to the last one. It's around how an object, when it is observed, becomes different because of the fact that it is observed. And so there's a degree of exploitation around that in much the same way as you think about, you know, major films, porn, all that type of stuff. There's a degree of obsession around it. Is it going, well, I want to see the perfect thing. And there's also around a degree of underestimation. Is that, you know, when you go, nope, just go, no, I can't deal with it. I cannot deal with it. I cannot comprehend what this is. And what Nope actually does is that there is a character called Jean Jacket that appears in the film that is a phenomena that is beyond human comprehension. And for that character, it is not a side character. So whilst a lot of the film is around how humans respond to that character is not, you know, it's not a side character. It is the lead in its own film, and it acts exactly like that, with a sense of confidence and assurance that tells you that it is not fucking about. It is doing what it wants to do, how it wants to do it, what it thinks it can get away with doing. It's not a side character at all. It is a lead in its own film. We just happen to be passing through that as it happens. Obviously, there's the ending of the movie, which I'm going to be trying to be ambiguous about, is that Jean Jacket itself underestimates something. And in much the same way as we have, for example, Jaws 2, the end of Jaws 2, when the shark bites the cable and it fries itself to death. There's an element where Jean Jacket looks at something and thinks it's relatively small and nothing, and it absolutely isn't. But there's also an element of the idea of all of the main characters, the main predators in this film are activated when you view them, when you look at them, when you look at them in the eye. From the opening scene with the chimpanzee, which goes on its rampage when people make eye contact with it, to Jean Jacket, which responds when people make eye contact with it. It is around an element of, firstly, destruction as survival. So it's an animal way of looking. You look at things and you go, I'm hungry, I'm going to kill that, I'm going to eat that. And then there's an element of also going, well, actually, its state changes when it's observed. And people underestimate Jean Jacket, they underestimate the chimpanzee. Jean Jacket itself underestimates something. And that's how the film works, is around the power of underestimating something and what the consequences of that are for you. I think what I will also say is that it's not coincidental that one of the characters is called OJ in it. I think because obviously there was OJ Simpson, and yes, there was the murder, and that is awful. But there's also the trial by media that you would have, and OJ effectively having his tragedy, whatever that tragedy would be, being used as a form of entertainment. It changed because it was observed. So if you remember the footage of OJ driving the truck on the highway, surrounded by news helicopters and chased by the police, that chase changed because it was on television. That's an important part of it. It was an element of, for example, OJ was a faded sports star. Here's somebody who had outlived the time in which he was born, the things which he was made to do, and then all of a sudden, like everybody that comes to the end of their natural kind of period of usefulness, if you're a boxer, for example, or an actor or somebody, you have a certain limited window of time beyond which you then become effectively obsolete, or you become a nostalgia act. OJ had outlived its time, and with Nope, for example, what we're looking at is, certainly in my opinion, you can look at both the chimpanzee and Jean Jacket as something that is outside of the time of which they would have been regarded, or the time in which they would have felt most at use. They're suddenly in an alien world, a new world, and they're responding to the differences in that. There's also a little bit of imagery which I do want to bring up. By the way, it's in the first few minutes of the movie, so it is worth keeping an eye on. It's the shoe. If you look at the shoe, and you realise the angle that the shoe is at, and you suddenly realise that in everything that happened, the fixation upon the shoe being at a certain angle will tell you one of two things. Firstly, that the narrator could be unreliable, because there is no way that should actually have happened naturally. It's so impossibly, infinitesimally small as to be improbable or unlikely. The second one is around the meaning of memory and the meaning of improbability, is that you're suddenly looking at a situation that is so far beyond the balance of the probable that it may never actually have happened. If it did happen, it may not have happened the way that you remember it. And it's effectively almost like a bad miracle. It's something which you look at and you go, that doesn't make any sense. In both of the films, or more correctly, in both of the main storylines of the films, both the chimpanzee and Jean Jacket, there is an element where the creature or the object, the predator, takes off its disguise. It changes its form. Now, for the chimpanzee, it's pretty obvious. Chimpanzee is dressed in like jeans and a jumper and a party hat. But at the end of the day, it's an animal, and treating it like a human will not work. It doesn't work, and that's part of the cause of the downfall of it. And when we have Jean Jacket, as well as there's an element where suddenly it transforms, and you're kind of looking at it and you're going, oh my God, this is not what I thought it was at all. You think it's one thing, but then you suddenly realise it's something very, very, very different indeed. There's a question around, is it alien? Is it something that's lived on Earth all this time? Is it previously unidentified species, which is very, very possible. It's got a distinct resemblance to the angels that are mentioned in the Bible, and also the angels that are mentioned in, I think, whatever it's called, Elita Battle Angel, I think they're called. It's got a very similar description to those. And it's got a square eye. And actually, you might look at it and go, that's not an eye. It's an eye. It's a square eye. It looks like one of the old-fashioned bellows-driven movie cameras. But also, biologically, that is accurate, because there are some deep-sea animals, and I think some octopuses have square eyes as well. And you're kind of looking at it and going, oh, so it's not a standard organism. You look at it and you go, well, on the balance of probability, Occam's razor, it's going to be X, it's going to be Y, it's going to be Z. And then when you watch Nope, you suddenly realise it's none of those things. It's something completely, completely different. The film opens with a biblical quote, which is, I will cast abominable filth upon you, make you vile, and make you a spectacle. And when you watch this film, and I've watched the film 3 or 4 times now in the past few months, every time I see it, I see something new about it, about the nature of spectacle, about the nature of observation, about the nature of human desire. It's one of the best films I've seen in a very, very, very long time. And Jordan Peele's other movies, by the way, Get Out, which I know my brother hates, and Us, which I don't know if he's seen, but I have, and I like them both, are both absolutely fascinating films which address interesting and weird ideas about the unusual, about what could happen in a world that is beyond the world which you can strictly see. If you think about what we can see with our eyes, what we can hear with our ears, there's huge realms of stuff that we can't see with our eyes. Can't see radio waves. Most of us can't see ghosts. Can't hear certain tones that dogs and cats can hear, for example. Nope is around the balance of perception and going, the perception which you have is not good enough for the world which have the ideas that you have in this reality, the things that you see, and the perceptions that you bring to it, and the conceptions that you have and the assumptions that you make are erroneous and false, and it is not to be underestimated. Nope is my film of the year. I've tried really hard not to spoil it. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on in this film, but I recommend it highly. It is my film of 2022, is Nope. So, in recompense, or more correctly in conclusion, the worst film I saw all year was Avatar 2. Let's do some more Avataring, which is a bag of shit. And the thing with Avatar is that what it has, it's all on the surface, it's all open, it's all obvious. It doesn't have the degree of extra thought that makes a film from being a good story to a film being great. Whereas Nope, you can clearly see that everything that happens in Nope is there for a reason, that somebody's thought about it and they've given it the thought and consideration that it deserves. When you make a motion picture, people are going to spend millions of hours, most people are going to spend millions of hours watching it. If 500,000 people see a 2-hour movie, that is 1 million hours of someone's life. That is, and by the way, since there's only 168 hours in a week, then what you're looking at is decades of life from a film. So, you know, what is 1 million hours? 1 million hours is what, 30 years or something like that? Something ridiculous. It is a long, long time. In fact, I'm just going to go and check it right now. Hang on. Yeah, I've just double checked it. So 1 million hours is 114 years. So if you make a film and 500,000 people watching it, you're effectively looking at 1.5 lifetimes. So put the fucking effort in and give it a little bit of thought, because the film deserves that. If you're going to ask some people across the planet to spend 114 years of their lives watching your movies, at least spend a little bit of thought in it, as opposed to just going, yeah, all right, looks cool, we'll stick a blue object that looks like some kind of weird fucked up jellyfish in there because it looks pretty. Think about what you're going to say, and then make sure that when you say it, you don't fudge it and you don't drop the ball. That is why Nope is my best film of the year, because what you're looking at when I watch Nope is I'm experiencing someone that's given a degree of thought to something, and they've given it the seriousness and the artistry that it deserves. Avatar, bag of shit. It's Dances with Wolves with blue people. It's a film that shouldn't have to exist. It's long, it's flabby, it's one of the worst films I've ever seen, Avatar 2. And I have seen Cannonball Run 2, by the way. And I've seen Salo, and I've seen Caligula, you know, and Avatar 2 is worse than those movies, which must tell you that it's pretty bad. So 2022, thumbs down for Avatar, thumbs up for Nope. Nope is my film of the year 2022. Excellent. So if you've made it to the end of this, thank you for spending 35 minutes with me listening to me talk about my movies that I like. I'll try and do something about some rock and roll next time round. Since it's now 2023, a number of great records are coming up for their 30th anniversary, and I'm always going to be one to milk an anniversary when it comes to these things. If you could think about records that were released in January 1993, you could almost definitely guess what one of the next ones that's coming up is going to be. You're also, by the way, if you think that one of the things that came out in January 1993 is anything by Simply Red, I will never talk about that terrible band, apart from just now, because I think they are atrocious. And to be honest, I don't care what they think of me. It doesn't matter. An insult from a band that's absolutely awful is almost a compliment, is one way to put it. So I'm going to wrap up here. Take care of yourselves and each other. Stay beautiful. Stay subscribed. And I will see you all soon. Thank you. And good night. All right. Bye.